Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Marketing Inc. I have an awesome guest with me today, Mike Stelzner, CEO and founder of Social Media Examiner, a personal friend and inspiration to me. And I am so happy to have you on today. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Allie. Super
Yeah.
awesome to be with you.
Yeah. I am really excited to talk about a topic that Mike is really one of the leaders on. He's a leader in so many ways, but the new app platform social media experience called Clubhouse. So I know Clubhouse is something that our audience probably doesn't know a ton about, but there is a lot of talk about Clubhouse. A lot of people are really getting into it and seeing amazing results with it. So I am going to have Mike, one of these experts on this platform at the time, really walk us through the ins and outs and how someone could use this app for their business, whether it's a local business or a national business. I'm sure there are ways to make this work in any direction. And so I really would love for you to first just kind of give the audience a backstory about you quickly, what you do, and how you came to really be on Clubhouse and your experience with that so far.
Yeah, I am the founder of Social Media Examiner, and what I do is help marketers figure out how to use social. And a lot of times, some of those marketers are the business owners. Other times, they work for the business. And really, one of the things that I try to do is kind of keep my eyes on trends that are going on in the industry. And the quick story is that I was taking over our talk show. And I think you've been on that talk show, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, the social
hmm
media marketing talk show. And I posted on Facebook that I was excited to be taking over that show. And somebody responded and said, "Hey, I think you might like Clubhouse." And that somebody was Michael Sanchez. He introduced me to Clubhouse back in early December of 2020. And I was wowed by it and immediately saw the potential. And then I went on to write an article called Why Clubhouse Might Be the Next Big Social Platform. That article took off. Then we ended up writing a second article. That article took off. Then I did a couple of videos. Those things took off. And now we're recording this in the end of February. And there are 10 million active weekly users on Clubhouse. And there was less than a million back in December when I was on there. This thing
Wow.
has exploded. It is all over the press. I mean, like we're talking Wall Street Journal, New York Times, every major publication is reporting about it more than once a week. And there is clearly something going on here. Twitter rolled out Spaces on the race to try to compete with them. Facebook rolled out something called Fireside or Fire Chat. So like there is like a land rush going on here. This is a new kind of social, and we've never seen anything like it, quite like it before. And as a result, it represents an opportunity for those that are paying attention.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of those things where everyone always sees these new platforms come up and they want to be skeptical about them as if they're just, a flash or something that is just going to be here today and gone tomorrow. And I think you've really done a great job of talking about this recently about why you believe this is going to be something that's lasting and that people should be paying serious attention to. So let's just kind of start from the beginning. What is Clubhouse?
So the best way to describe Clubhouse is to think about a physical conference that you've been to. You notice how when you walk down, imagine yourself walking down the halls like of social media marketing world, and you have all these different rooms you can walk into, right? And there's presentations going on inside of those rooms. It's the same concept, except you have people up on the stage talking, and you've got people that come in and out of the room that are simply listening. The difference is there is no video. So it's a very similar dynamic to kind of a panel discussion, if you will. But the difference is anyone can come up on stage, right? So imagine those lines you've seen at conferences where people line up wanting to talk. Well, you don't just line up to talk, you also get invited up on the stage and you can stay up on the stage. And that's an interesting dynamic. There is no private messaging. There is no chat stream like you might be familiar with live video. And because it's only audio, it's really accessible. And this is really important. So many people that are used to Instagram Live and Facebook Live do not participate in it because they don't feel like they're camera ready, right? Maybe they're not in a place where they want everyone to see them, or maybe they're not looking the way they want to look, right? So they just don't choose to participate. What's great about this new platform with Clubhouse is anybody can start a room on any topic and anyone can show up into the room. I had a chance to actually interview Grant Cardone and also Damon John from Shark Tank. When I say interview, I mean I was up on the stage and I was asking them questions. And these, both of these individuals, which are very high profile, wealthy individuals, it would be almost impossible to talk to them in real life. They would have gatekeepers amongst gatekeepers amongst gatekeepers. But on Clubhouse, there is something about the culture there where you can hear from people and talk to people in a way that doesn't happen elsewhere. And it's not just people like Grant Cardone and Damon John. It's people across every conceivable industry. And it's absolutely fascinating. And if we step back a little bit and we think about the kinds of things that are discussed on Clubhouse, it's everything from cryptocurrency and investing to marketing to loneliness to music to entertainment to plays. I mean, anything that can be communicated with voice, there is probably a room for it. And it's just absolutely fascinating the way it all works, because it's almost like a replacement for podcasting, Allie. You know, I don't know if you've done it before, but a lot of people can pop into a room and hear. Like I was in there when Elon Musk was talking, and then you just shut the phone down, put on your AirPods, and just listen while you're driving the car or doing the dishes. But it's live, and that's what makes it really fascinating.
That sounds incredible and totally different than so many of the platforms that we're used to. And maybe that's a reason that people have really grasped onto it, because there are so many similarities, things we do like, but also things that we don't like on some of these other platforms. And it seems like this is kind of an escape from some of those negatives that people may find in terms of accessibility, interaction, and just like you mentioned, feeling like they can't go on camera to say what they want to say. And so this gives them that perfect outlet. So, in terms of signing up for Clubhouse, I think a lot of people on other social platforms have probably seen posts about who's got a Clubhouse invite and things like that. Tell us about what that is, why that matters, and how that may apply to someone signing up.
So, first of all, it's coming for Android. That's the good news. And when it comes for Android, I believe they're going to open it up to the general public without invitations at all. But there is some advantages to trying to get in now before it kind of opens up to the rest of the world, right? Because chances are pretty good. Basically, what you want to do is you want to download the app on your iPhone and or your iPad if you happen to have, you know, an iPad. And so many of my Android friends went out and got iPads, right? Or borrowed someone's iPad and just created an account so they could get in there. Like Billy Jean is a great example. You know, he's been crushing it, and he bought his daughter an iPad for Christmas, you know, and he knew he was going to be using it in the evenings while she was sleeping. So, the reason for the invitations is because there's been plenty of times like when Elon Musk came on that the whole app crashed, right? So when you have too many people on there at once and it's such a small company, we're talking like less than 10 people work for the company. It's super tiny, and they have to be sure that they can accommodate the crazy growth. So they cap rooms, for example. Used to be 5,000 people in a room. Now it's 8,000 people in a room, maybe 9,000. But they're slowly scaling up the technology so that it doesn't not work. For those that have been around for a while, probably remember when Twitter was young, they had this fail whale thing, right? Where Twitter would just break. And the best way to control the breakage, if you will, is to limit the number of people that are on the platform. Now, the fact that it is limited does give it a little bit of exclusivity, and it does feel kind of cool because not everybody can get in and everybody wants something they can't have. You know, that's how it works, right?
Yeah, I've
So,
seen people legitimately like selling their Clubhouse invites. I mean, never have seen anything like that on any of these other
are
platforms.
you on the
Definitely unique.
platform?
I am, yeah.
Okay. So, here's how it works. Someone who's on the platform gets invitations typically about every week if they're active. So if you give an invitation away, you will get more invitations. So there's a really, really good chance that anyone listening, if you just simply download the app onto your iPhone and then post on your social platforms, I'm looking for an invite, there's a really good chance that someone you know is going to let you in. It's extremely likely because there's so many people on the app now and they're all getting invitations as they give invitations. That's also really smart marketing, let's be honest, right? I mean, what other app that's only private has had this kind of PR in the history of apps? Nothing, right? And it's in the top 30 of all iPhone apps. So there's a lot of like marketing going on here behind the scenes, but I would imagine that by April or May of this year, they'll drop the Android app. And at that point, they'll probably open it up to the public and then it will burst because, if there's no barriers to get in, then a lot more people are going to try it out.
Yeah, for sure. So, exactly like you said, if you can get on now, it'd probably be the best time. So, let's say I get an invitation, I sign up. What should I really be doing first? How do I get myself acquainted with this platform?
Well, I have recorded a couple of really helpful videos. If you go to socialmediaexaminer.com/ch, which stands for Clubhouse, it'll take you over to our YouTube playlist. And the first video is kind of a walkthrough because at first blush, it's not super intuitive. You can kind of figure it out, but there's a lot of hidden features and functions. So I would watch that video, which kind of gives you the lay of the land. The basics are to when you sign up, it's going to ask you what are your interests, and it's going to give you a limited list. Then, if you go into your bio and you click on the gear in the upper right hand corner, it's going to give you a much more exhaustive list of interests. So you want to program the algorithm and say what you're interested in, and it's got a bazillion different categories. After that, then what you want to do is you want to start following people. So let's say they're going to recommend, if you hit the search button on the upper left, they're going to give you recommendations of people that happen to have your phone number in their contacts directory because they assume you're friends. So you can start following friends, but you also can look at someone. For example, if you're into marketing, you could look me up. I'm at Stelzner. You could see everyone that I'm following, and you might recognize some names and start following them. So you can kind of go down the rabbit trail. Have you done this as well? Have you looked at
Mhm.
who other people are following?
Yeah.
So, so who you follow is really important because when they're in rooms, you're going to see those rooms in the feed. So there's thousands of rooms going on at once, but the algorithm is only going to show you rooms that it thinks you're interested in.
Hmm.
So that's based on interests and people. The third thing is clubs. There are clubs that you can follow. So, for example, if you search or you go into the directory, you can see all these categories and all these clubs. Social Media Examiner has a club. If you're interested in marketing, you can follow our club. So, so the algorithm treats people, interests, and clubs to try to find out what you're interested in. Then, as you're in the app, if you see some weird rooms, you can scroll left and you can hide that room, and that programs the algorithm that you're not interested in this topic. Because honestly, your friends might be in some really wonky rooms that you're like, I don't give a hoot about that, right? And eventually the algorithm is going to get really good and it's going to show you things that it knows you're interested in. For example, I'm interested in Star Wars, so I see some Star Wars related topics. I'm interested in marketing, I see a lot of marketing topics. I'm interested in entrepreneurship, and I see some weird stuff and I see some good stuff, and I hide the weird stuff. So the last thing is realize that people are constantly checking out your bio when you're on the app. Because when you're staring at your phone, you got nothing better to do. You click on people's bios and you see who they are and what they're all about. So it's in your best interest to build out your bio. Like if you're the queen of local business or you help certain kinds of people, you want to put that in the bio. You also want to connect your Instagram and your Twitter accounts because right now that's the only way to communicate. So what happens a lot of times is people do Instagram DMs. So they'll go over to your Instagram account, even if you have a horrible Instagram account, and they'll DM you because that's the easiest way for people to communicate. Connect your Twitter account as well. So that's kind of what you want to do in the beginning.
Yeah, I love that. And I was definitely going to ask about that bio because I think on any social media platform, it's the only way we can really quickly, efficiently communicate who we are. So I've seen links in bios. Obviously, that's allowed. Is there any Is
The
there
links are
anything?
not clickable in the bios.
They're not clickable. Okay. So you can put what they are. Maybe somebody can go search for them. Is there really any good do's and don'ts? Maybe some small little tips or tidbits in terms of profile photo or things to include in that bio outside of your main I help X do Y?
Yeah. I would for sure say what your interests are inside your bio. So for example, I've got like, topics that interest me, social media marketing, content marketing, podcasting. The reason that's important is because someone might look at your bio and see what your interests are and invite you up on the stage just because you're maybe someone who's relevant. When people raise their hand and they're in the queue, you can look at the bios of everyone and decide who to invite up on the stage. So if you want to come up on the stage and talk to someone or be in front of an audience, the more refined your bio is, the better, right? Because then they'll say, okay, even though I don't know this person, it seems as if this person is going to add value. So I'm going to bring him or her up on the stage. Um, Other stuff to include in your bio is remember it's all search keyword phrased. So my name is Michael Stelzner, but people call me Mike. So I realized people couldn't find Mike Stelzner. So I had to put that in my bio. So what I did was I put social media marketing geek Mike Stelzner, founded Social Media Examiner as my first sentence, right? And that was important because then if someone searched Social Media Examiner or Mike Stelzner, they would find me. So think about those words in your bio that you think people might um, search for you for, or that you might want to be found for as people are looking for people to follow on certain kinds of topics.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Okay, so you mentioned these clubs. You've got your users and then you have clubs. What is the difference between a club versus a room versus an individual user?
Okay. So everybody, first of all, think about this. You cannot have your brand on Clubhouse. You can only have a person on Clubhouse, right? So unlike Facebook, for example, where you can have a page and a profile, right? A profile has to be
Mhm.
human and a page can be a business. Well, you can't have a page on Clubhouse. It needs to be a real human. Okay. So you should use your real name. Well, let's say you run a business. Well, how do you make that work? You apply for a club. So this is where Social Media Examiner is the business in my case, and we have a club called Social Media Examiner. We could have called it social media marketing. We could have called it something generic, but we wanted to call it something specific because we are a recognized brand. Does that
Mhm.
make sense?
Absolutely.
And what's really cool is now the club has admins, just like a page has admins, right? So clubs, the best way to describe a club is like a Facebook group meets a Facebook page. So clubs can have members and it can have followers. The members are like the members of a group, right? The followers are like the followers of a page. There are two different dynamics in one thing called a club. Okay.
Mhm.
So when the club hosts a room, and this is important, right? A person can just start up a room or a club can start a room, right? So when the club starts a room, there's an extra label at the top of the room with a little green Monopoly house, right? And it's in all caps. And that's how you know that a club is hosting that particular room. And you can follow clubs, right? So as you follow clubs, you might see rooms that are hosted by that club. Now back to the members versus followers. So this is where it can get kind of interesting. You can host rooms that are private or public. So if you have a club and you want your customers to be members of the club, then you can go private only for members with rooms and no one else will see it. Or you could go public for everyone, both members and followers will see it. Does that you begin to wrap your mind around that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm already thinking of ways that I can use that for my business. I have a Facebook group with my students and people who bought my courses. And wouldn't it be so cool to be able to do these voice audio talks when I'm not wanting to be on camera or just something spur of the moment and really only share that with them? And then obviously expose the brand and the business to more people by doing those public rooms. I think that sounds really, really unique. I love the tie in between the two. So let's talk a little bit more about rooms because obviously this is the main unique feature it feels like in this platform. And so we can have these clubs, starting rooms, public or private. Can an individual at any time just start a room? And how does that work?
Yes. Any room can be started up by anyone anytime. And there's really two different ways to start a room. If you open up the app, there's a big green button that says start a room. And it gives you options, public, social, and private. And then you can also schedule a room. So there's a calendar in the upper top right when you're in the main thing called the hallway, kind of the feed. And you can schedule a room. When you schedule a room, that gives it a little bit more exposure because people will see the schedule and they'll see the room. When you open up the app at the very top, there's like a schedule of the most recent 3 rooms. And then, that just allows you to get a little bit more exposure for people that are looking for rooms.
Mhm.
In the beginning, most people don't schedule rooms. They just decide to spin up a room spontaneously. Um, what was the rest of the questions on the rooms?
Well, a question on that. Is
Yeah.
it better to schedule a room, or is
Yes.
there different use cases? What are your suggestions on
I
that?
think, well, here's my personal thoughts. I think it's always better to schedule a room for a couple of reasons. The room stays in the schedule for like a full hour after it's been scheduled. So that means anybody who clicks on the schedule is going to see rooms that have started in the last hour. They might not see it in the feed because they're not following the people that are in the rooms. You understand where I'm going with that? So,
Mhm.
but they might see it in the schedule.
Yeah.
In addition, you can assign other speakers to a room when you schedule it, and they'll just automatically be speakers when they pop into the room, which is kind of cool. You also get a description when you schedule a room. So when you start up a room, you just get a title. But when you schedule the room, you get a description and a link. And what's really cool is you can tweet that out, you can share that out. So you can drive traffic from other platforms into the room. You can email people
Mhm.
with that link into the room. And the only way to do that is if you schedule the room.
I love that. I think it makes perfect sense to do that. And let's, really talk, I guess, about the dynamics inside of these rooms. So you already mentioned that you can add other speakers to the rooms. You also mentioned that people can raise their hand and basically be called on stage, so to speak. So when you enter a room, is there some sort of protocol that people are following, some sort of etiquette within these rooms? Tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about what that feels like.
Well, there's a really interesting social dynamic in the rooms. Okay. First of all, when you go in a room, you've got the people that are up on the stage called the speakers. Then you've got what I call the second row. And the second row are the people the speakers follow. And they're kind of like right at the next section. And then everybody else is below that. So if you enter into a room and the speaker happens to follow you, you're kind of going to be in the front row and everybody's going to see you and they might click on your bio and they might follow you or they might
Mhm.
message you. And what's fascinating about Clubhouse is the notification. So every time you go up on stage, everyone who follows you gets notified, which is part of the reason why people can kind of rush into the room when you start up a room. And that's a really interesting social dynamic, right? Which is speakers, those followed by the speakers, and then everyone else. So there is that fascinating component to it. Now, when you enter into a room, you are automatically muted and you're in the audience and nobody can hear you. So you don't have to freak out if you're in a noisy place. It's not till you're invited up on the stage and you have to be invited, right? You raise your hand. If you get selected, all of a sudden you're up on stage and you're unmuted and you need to be prepared to mute yourself because I've had people yell expletives. Holy poop. I can't believe I'm up on stage and I'm like mute because they don't realize they're unmuted, right? And and then the etiquette is once you're up on stage, you remain muted until you have something to say. And that's really important because with a lot of people up on the stage, it can get noisy. All the little sounds, the background, and all that stuff can be there. There's a moderator of the room, and you can tell who the moderators are because they have a little green asterisk next to their name, and usually they're in charge, and you can tell they're usually going through each person one at a time. So the protocol is kind of wait until you're called on, unless you're invited up. So sometimes you'll go into a room and someone might know you and they'll say, "Hey, Allie just came into the room. Allie, I'd love to bring you up on the stage if you're able to." At that point, you're given an option to say maybe later or yes. And then you're up on the stage. And still at that point, you want to wait until they acknowledge you, right? Because usually you came in right in the middle of some sort of a dialogue that's going on.
Mhm.
The stage experience can be all over the map. Like I've been in rooms where there's 40 or 50 people up on the stage and it's madness. I'm sure you have as well, right?
Yeah.
And then I've been in situations where there's only like 5 or 6 people up on the stage, right? So the more people there are, the longer you're going to be waiting before they probably call on you.
Mhm.
And occasionally someone who's a celebrity might pop in the room, and all of a sudden it's full stop. We want to invite celebrity up on the stage and see what they have to say. That happened multiple times when I've been in a room and all of a sudden Damon John pops in, Hey everybody, Damon John is here. Let's stop for a second and see if he's willing to chat with us, right? And part of what makes it really interesting is when you're up on stage and someone you follow pops into the room, you get a little announcement at the top. Michael Stelzner has entered the room, right? And that sometimes, depending on who you follow, forces you to like pause and maybe alter your agenda a little bit based on the social dynamics of who's coming and who's going. Because some people that are super high profile, they may not stick around very long. Have you experienced some of that yourself?
Not a ton. I really am just dipping my toe into the water, mainly because I want to make sure that if I'm going to invest time in it, that I'm doing it the right way, that I really kind of have a game plan around it. So much of
Right.
what you've already said today has really given me a lot of what I need to feel like I've got a good direction to kind of dive in deeper. But that really brings up my next point, and that is the time to spend on the platform and maybe the hours of the day, because we all know that there are different hours and different days of the week that have different types of traffic on these platforms. I'm sure most people that are in business that want to get involved in this, maybe they don't have endless hours in the day to do it, and they want to make sure the time they are spending is really, really specific. Is there any thoughts you can share on
Yes.
what does it look like to spend time there and when should you be doing that?
Most people on the platform right now are professionals, working professionals, which means that the evenings and the weekends are when they're on there because they can't be on there during the day
Yeah.
because they have a job.
Mhm.
So you will see that after about 5 o'clock, whatever your time zone is, it'll spur up,
Mhm.
specifically Pacific, 5 Pacific and later, it'll just be super nuts. And in the evening is when a lot of the big celebrities sometimes come on the platform as well. The Elon Musks of the world and
Mhm.
Mark Zuckerbergs and a lot of these people, they're almost always there. If they're going to be there, they're generally there in the evening, sometimes late into the evenings. The weekends is another good time because it's now beginning to go global. So you've got a contingency in Australia, United Kingdom. There is beginning to be certain times of the day that just always are popular depending on what parts of the world everybody's in. Like sometimes when I'm at lunch, I might pull up the app and see if anything interesting is going on. But just be aware, it's like very addictive. So it's
I've
very
heard.
hard. It's very hard. The average session duration is 90 minutes. This is what the founders say. Okay. When was the last time you spent 90 minutes in one session on Facebook or Instagram or even YouTube?
Yeah.
The average session duration is 90 minutes on this. Okay.
That's amazing.
That is huge. It's very sticky. If you go into a room, you're probably, and it's a good room, you're going to be in there maybe for an hour, hour and a half, because it's like listening to a great podcast.
Mhm.
So beware, it's extremely addictive. You have to be very careful about if you're going to start a room, it's almost impossible to have the room last for less than an hour. It's just hard
Mhm.
because it's like a social gathering, right? Imagine, those hallway conversations at Social Media Marketing World or other events. They can go on for hours because it's so rich and nobody wants to leave, right?
Yeah.
So that's exactly what it's like on here. So choose your time wisely and be very careful about accepting invitations to come up on stage if you don't have time.
Mhm.
But the good news is you can do this way, in a multitasking kind of way. Like maybe you can be up on stage and you could still be putting your daughter to bed. You know what I mean? But you're just in listen only mode. Everybody knows that the nature of this app is that people are doing other things while they're listening. So
Mhm.
that's why there's usually an interesting dynamic of a multitude of individuals up on the stage. And when someone doesn't respond right away, it might be because they're in the restroom, or maybe it's because they can't unmute at that moment, but it's okay, right? So you want to have like a slightly larger number of individuals up on the stage. This is where scheduling a room and recruiting people in advance for a talk is really
Mhm.
wise, right? So every Saturday morning, Social Media Examiner hosts a room typically at 7 or 9 a.m. Pacific. We only go for about an hour and 45 minutes only.
Only. Yeah.
And but it's usually, around a topic, and we'll bring up people from the audience. And man, once you start bringing up people from the audience and these questions start coming, that's when it gets really fascinating because it's just really, really cool, the diversity of individuals from all over the world. And you just begin to be shocked at how amazing some of these people are. And you just want to keep the dialogue going because it's so social.
Yeah, one thing that really just stands out to me hearing you talk about this is the ability it feels like to be able to really get to know someone.
Oh,
And
it's huge.
that's what I really look for in my social platforms. So I'm on Instagram. I've never really been like an Instagram type of person. It's always felt like more of a chore to me. And it's because I don't feel like I really get to know people and have rich conversations in the Instagram comments. You know, you can say what you want to say, but I really get to know people through comments on Facebook a lot. And this feels like an amazing way to be able to really get a deep understanding of what somebody is about, what they think, what they feel, and if you want to get to know them more.
And that's the secret advantage for business right there. Because I can tell you that I have had so many people tell me that they've gotten more business off this than anything else they've ever done, full stop,
Hmm.
because you get to know people very quickly on this app, even if you're in the audience, right? Because you're hearing their expertise, you're hearing their competency. So anyone who's like a coach or a consultant or an expert, and this is the fascinating part, because everyone listening right now who feels like they missed out on the Instagram train or the YouTube train, this is your chance to become a true influencer,
Hmm.
because I have met so many people I've never met before that are now showing up on my stages, right? And on my YouTube channel and on my various podcasts because of Clubhouse, because I could hear them and I knew they knew what they were talking about. And it was so clear to me that they were experts, right? Where a lot of times we just see an Instagram story and it's only 15 seconds, right? Or we see a little video, but we don't realize how many takes it took them to get that just perfect, right? And they certainly appear as if they know what they're talking about, but it's not till you hear them and you're like, wow, these people know what the heck they're talking about. It is a massive, massive opportunity. And here's the other side I think we should have mentioned. When the room is done, it's gone forever. It's not recorded. So this has got a big, big part of the reason it's so sticky is nobody wants to miss out, right?
Hmm.
So it's exactly like a conference. It's literally exactly like a conference. You walk into the room. Most conferences don't record anything, and you know you've got your notepad out and you're taking
Hmm.
notes. Exactly the same thing on Clubhouse, and you just it's just like it is something unique, and as a result, it's a massive opportunity for someone who has something to say, because most people in Clubhouse say nothing; they only listen. And if you've got value to add, you can take it to the next level, and you can grow a massive following on this platform.
I think this sounds so incredible. And I feel like there's going to be, you know, the marketers out there definitely that are listening and saying, you know, this could be a great opportunity for me to share my expertise. I think there's going to be local business owners who are saying, how can I use this platform for me? Obviously, the keywords of your city, I would assume in your bio, things like that are going to be really important. But if you really look at something like TikTok, where there are these local businesses like dentists and chiropractors, and they have grown a large following, yeah, you're going to get people that aren't in your area that you can't serve necessarily, at least today. But it's also going to bring a lot of attention to you as the business owner and the business. And I would even venture to say, I mean, this could be an amazing opportunity to share whatever your local business's expertise is with the world to make it more than a local business and really grow that to be national or even worldwide. I mean, what are your thoughts on this, Mike?
Well, I know a guy named Chocolate Johnny who's out of Australia, and I don't know if you know or have ever heard of him, but
Mm-mm.
he said his business has blown up, and now he's shipping chocolate, all over the world, because of Clubhouse.
That's
And
amazing.
Bruce Irvin, who you may know,
Mhm.
one of your fellows, local marketers, I think he's got the Pizza Smart Marketing podcast and another one.
Yeah.
He was recently on Tyler Anderson's podcast, specifically talking about the opportunity for local and Clubhouse. There is an opportunity for local and Clubhouse.
Hmm.
Think about this. Is there an opportunity for local and Facebook?
Oh,
Why?
absolutely. Because, you know, the people are there.
Right. So what happens when this thing opens up to the world? What if you could be the local expert on whatever in your local community? And what if you started the San Diego club or you started the whatever club, right? And all of a sudden
Hmm.
people that were interested in that city, You could be the one representing your city for Clubhouse.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you've got that club and you say, hey, everybody, by the way, come on over to Joe's nail salon, or not Joe's. Yeah, it could be Joe's, right? Joe could
Yeah,
be a woman's name.
for
Come
sure.
on over to Joe's nail salon for a special. They're the official sponsor of this week's club room or whatever, right? Like for sure, every social platform starts with broad topics and then eventually goes narrow. So
Mhm.
I would say there's massive opportunity there if you choose to be the evangelist for your city, because I can assure you, Clubhouse isn't going away. Like it's growing like crazy. I've never seen, I mean, it's been years since I've seen anything have this kind of press
Mhm.
across everything you could possibly imagine. Local media entities are covering it, national, global media entities. I mean, it is for sure almost the equivalent of, how people would go to like maybe a local restaurant and they would have their little meetups in the morning
Mhm.
pre-pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Well, you can do that on Clubhouse now. Why couldn't you do that on Clubhouse?
You absolutely could. I mean, there is so many applications for this just floating through my mind right now. And I think that especially for local businesses, not even just for your local community. I mean, this is something we've talked about a lot over the course of the last year on this podcast, is that you don't have to just be a local business. I think that local community based businesses are so important. Every community needs those. It's where people really connect with each other, but that doesn't mean you have to be limited. It means that whatever it is that your business was founded on, whether it's your ideas or your expertise or your knowledge or your skills, those things can translate to a lot of different applications that you may have never really considered. And if you have this audience that is bigger than your local community, it may really inspire you to create a way to provide something to those people, which could exponentially grow your business.
But let's get creative here. You open up Clubhouse, you hit the search button, you type in your city. Let's say it's Tulsa. Okay. You look at all the people in Tulsa, you start following them. And then maybe you say, hey, what if we do a room together? And you schedule a room specifically for like local Tulsa businesses, right?
Mhm.
And in the beginning, you just have a conversation. You see who shows up, right? Local Tulsa businesses conversation, join us, right? All of a sudden, people start showing up inside the room. They start following you, right? And maybe you just start trying this out as a way to just create some content and awareness, right? And before you know it, you're hosting rooms and you're just developing that network, right? And that network is really, really important for anybody who's in a local business. Everybody knows that about local business. It's about the network, right?
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, as Clubhouse starts growing, other local businesses are like, what the heck is this Clubhouse thing? Right. And they all want to talk to you. Right. And all of a sudden, you got a little side hustle, right?
Yeah.
Which is helping all these other businesses get onto Clubhouse. Right.
So true. And one thing that I really feel like could be a huge benefit in this area is the fact that so many local business owners that we speak to, work with, they are very resistant to doing video. And video is amazing because you can share your expertise, you can build a relationship, you can be more than just that business. You can really be a person with this knowledge or with this skill that someone wants to work with. Yet it's very difficult to get most local business owners to do video because it scares them. They are worried about having their face on camera. Maybe they don't even feel like they want to be the face of their business necessarily, but this is the way around that. You don't have to be the face. You can be the voice and do it in a way that is off the cuff or not perfectly polished and high production value. It doesn't sound like you need any of those things with this. So this could really be the workaround that a lot of local businesses have been looking for. Maybe not looking for, but really that they need to overcome that big obstacle, which is, getting started with content creation that is more than an image post.
You've just inspired me. I'm going to host a social media examiner room called Local Business and Clubhouse. And I'm
Nice.
going to invite you and Tyler Anderson and Bruce to all be part of that conversation.
I would love that.
And we'll just kind of see what comes from it, right? Because we might get a bazillion ideas that come from this because they're on there. I can assure you they're on there.
Hmm.
And maybe I'll even get Chocolate Johnny. I don't know if probably won't be up because it's Australia. But and this is what's cool about Clubhouse is you can just decide that you're going to host a room, you can stick it on the calendar and bada boom, there you go.
Yeah, no, I mean, this really sounds so incredible. So, back to the rooms, obviously listening in on these rooms is important, especially initially, to be able to hear those dynamics and really see that social etiquette that's going on. And let's say you're ready to host your first room. You had mentioned these moderators. So does every room need a moderator, or are you by default the moderator? How does that work? And
When
how
you
would you
start a
assemble
room,
your
yeah,
team?
when if you start a room, you are the moderator, okay? Or you schedule it.
Hmm.
If you're brought up as a speaker, you can be upgraded to a moderator. So someone might decide to make you the moderator. Now, what a moderator can do that a speaker cannot do is they can choose people from the audience to come up. They can mute people. So that's really important because somebody might have their audio is really, really bad,
Hmm.
or they might, when they come up, not realize they're not muted, right? So they can mute people. They can also move people back to the audience. So once the question is done, they can say thank you so much and move them back to the audience. So the moderators have full control of the room. They can
Hmm.
end the room. So it's really important to have at least, I think it's important to have at least one other moderator just in case something happens.
Yeah.
Like you get a phone call, the app crashes,
Hmm.
for whatever reason you get booted out of the room, so it doesn't end the room. So I
Yeah.
like to always have at least one more moderator in the room, ideally. And but the moderator, if they don't know how to moderate, then it's going to be confusing to them. And I do have a video on that as well at socialmediaexaminer.com/ch, which talks about how to moderate a room like a pro,
Hmm.
because that's kind of part of the magic is having a good moderator. Because when you have a lot of people who want to talk, the moderator has to take control of the room and has to set down the boundary rules, right?
Hmm.
All right, everybody, you've got 60 seconds to say your thing. Don't pitch your stuff, just
Hmm.
focus on your question. Thank you so much. Mute yourself when you're done, whatever, or whatever you choose to do, right? Because that's what's exciting about Clubhouse is it can be anything. I've been in rooms that are musical. I've been in rooms that are actual musicals, and they actually had different people playing different roles.
Wow.
I've been in rooms that were plays. I've been in rooms that actually had original instrumentals and stuff. And I've been in rooms that were just dead silent. And it was just a place to go where other people were. I mean, it's kind of like a blank canvas. You can do whatever you want
Yeah.
with the thing.
This sounds amazing. I think I'm going to start a poetry room and read some of my poetry.
There you
Maybe I could reinvigorate the poetry market on Clubhouse. Um,
Oh, there is already a poetry market on Clubhouse.
that's amazing. Well, I mean, there's really not a poetry market anywhere else, if I'm perfectly
Well, let me
honest.
rephrase. There's poetry clubs and all that stuff on
Uh
Clubhouse.
huh.
So you just have
That's
to find
super
them.
cool. I'm gonna have to check that one out. Okay, so you mentioned, 60 seconds, don't pitch your stuff. I'm really interested in the speaker. So this is their room.
Yeah.
What is normally the balance of full-on value-based content versus call to action, or slipping in information about what you do and where they can find you and things of that nature?
So what I do is I tend to provide pure value, knowing full well most people are going to click on my profile and they're going to
Hmm.
follow me, or they're going to click on the club and follow the club.
Hmm.
So every 15 minutes or so, I kind of track to see how many people are in the room. If there's been a big burst of people in the room, I do what's called a room reset, where I'll say, hey, everybody, I'm doing a room reset. For those of you that are just joining, here's what we're talking about today. Here's who's up on the stage. I might introduce them. Here's who I am, or whatever. I might vary it a little bit.
Hmm.
If you're interested in joining the conversation, raise your hand, right? Or we're only going to be here for 15 more minutes, so I've closed down the raise hand feature, right? Um, or hey, next week we're meeting on this topic, right? So follow the club so you don't miss out. Those are the kind of things that I typically do. I do not pitch or sell at all anything on the platform. My strategy is when you're in the early days, you want to grow a loyal community before you want to start pitching.
Hmm.
Let your bio do the pitching. Does that make sense? So you could
Absolutely.
say, hey, everybody, I've got this thing in my bio, check it out. But you generally don't even have to say that at all.
Hmm.
Like I might say, if it's irrelevant, I might say, hey, I've got a couple of videos for those of you that are new to Clubhouse. And click on my bio to find the link. You know what I mean? But I
Yeah.
generally don't pitch anything ever. And the best don't,
Hmm.
because it's all about providing value.
And that's how it is in so many other social and marketing platforms that a lot of people don't understand. Facebook groups, for instance, no one likes that person that's just pitching their services, because it's a place to engage. It's a place to try and get to know people. And it feels just very out of place when people are doing those sorts of things. So I'm glad to know that, because that's never really anything that people love.
Yeah,
But I really didn't know what type of pitches people were actually making. But the truth is, exactly like you said, if you're providing value and those bios are what people are clicking on to get to know these different people, if your info's there and it says what would attract the right person to your business, you may not have to do anything at all. So I feel like this is just such an interesting conversation. And I really think that the local business applications could be very much taken advantage of, starting right now, because it is in those early stages. This could be an opportunity to really cultivate your business in a unique way that would, I will say, future proof it in so many ways, because local businesses have seen the impact that COVID lockdowns have had on this local bricks and mortar operation that they're running. And now their minds have been open to these new ways to do business. But how do they get the word out? They are not used to doing that type of marketing. They're used to doing their local level marketing. This could be an amazing way to take those ideas that maybe you're already doing or you've been planning and get them out there to the world.
for sure.
So, if you had one final tip or tidbit or suggestion for our audience, such as, should you be starting rooms? How many hours is a good amount to spend on per day? Anything that you feel like will help them really get the most out of the platform, what would you say?
I would say go and watch rooms that are done well, um, and learn from them first, right? So kind of begin to understand the culture and ethos of the platform. If you want to follow me, I'm at Stelzner. I generally, like I said, go live on Saturday mornings. People really message me a lot saying they love the way that I do my rooms.
Hmm.
So find some rooms that are doing it well and model them. Another tip is move people back to the audience, because if there's a bazillion people up on the stage, people don't even want to come in the room because they know those kind of rooms tend to be babble all over the place, no focus at all. So
Hmm.
I try to never have more than 12 people up on the stage at any given time. But you'll see when you go into the app, you can tell how many people are up on the stage because there'll be a little first number is the total number of people in the room. The second number is the people that are on the stage. So that number ideally is small. If it's
Hmm.
really big, then you're going to waste your time in that room. But spend some time modeling, understanding what seems to be good, what connects with you, and then I would just try it out. Remember, the first time you start up a room, you might be there by yourself for a little bit before anybody shows up. A quick tip is when you are hosting a room, you can tell people, hey, if you like what you're hearing, click the plus sign and ping someone you're following into the room. That's a way to kind of grow a room.
Hmm. That is just such amazing information. And I know I'm a lot more excited about Clubhouse just from this conversation. Can't wait to implement some of these ideas myself. And I think the local business marketing room or club is going to be awesome. So if you guys are on Clubhouse, make sure you follow Mike at Stelzner. Make sure you're following the Social Media Examiner Club. Make sure you follow me. I'm at Allie Bloyd and would love to connect with you there. But I really encourage all of you to check out this platform, this app that is still in its infancy and can only get bigger from here. So thanks for joining us today, Mike. So happy to have you. And if people do want to learn more about you, I know it's socialmediaexaminer.com/CH. And
Right.
then where was the other place that you wanted to direct them to?
Um, that's pretty much it. If you also go to socialmediaexaminer.com, we've got a lot of articles as well. If you just search for Clubhouse, you'll see a ton of them.
Yep. And Mike is definitely the leading expert on Clubhouse at this point, I would say. I haven't seen anybody that's had a more direct focus on educating people on this platform. And obviously, you have really been around the globe when it comes to different social platforms. And anything that he's saying today, guys, I really want you to listen to it and implement it, because this man knows what he's talking about. So thanks again for coming. And I hope you guys tune in for the next episode. Thanks.